What if Anakin Skywalker was framed for the temple bombing instead of Ahsoka? That's our story for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. And of course, 60,000 lightsaber giveaway. Go check the pinned comment down below to enter. Thanks for doing that. Make sure to subscribe. And let's get right into today's video. Our story begins inside of a Republic prison, just days after the Jedi Temple hangar was bombed. Inside of one of the most secure prison cells was Anakin Skywalker, former Jedi Knight, now Republic prisoner for a crime that he did not commit. And as Anakin sat in the cell, he reflected on everything that happened leading up to this moment. After Letta Turman turned herself in and began describing what happened, she called for Ahsoka alone in order to confess what was truly going on. But Ahsoka was sent off-world after Letta was arrested to go fight on Cato Nemoidia alone. Anakin was getting ready to join her, but he went to visit Letta instead. And when Anakin arrived inside of the cell, Letta was choked from somewhere. Security recordings made it look like Anakin did it, and then the recordings were cut out as Anakin was pushed against the wall and knocked out by someone in the vents. Anakin remembered when he woke up and left the unlocked cell. The hallway was suddenly littered with dead clones, including Commander Fox, all of them slain by a lightsaber. Alarms were blaring, and Anakin began running away, trying to figure out what was going on. But outside the halls, he saw his own lightsaber stabbed through another clone. Anakin pulled the saber back to him, but as he did this, a new squad of clones, led by a group of commandos, ran in, seeing Anakin standing over the bodies with his lightsaber in hand. And Anakin was shot with stun blasts as he tried putting his hands up to say that this wasn't him. When eventually he did wake up, Anakin received the terrible news. He was not only now being accused of the temple bombing, but also accused of murdering Letta and around 50 clone troopers. The process would go quick from here because of the evidence being so reliable, and while Anakin was knocked out, Tarkin and the Republic government basically ordered that Anakin be expelled from the Jedi Order immediately. The Council saw the evidence, the murders that Anakin was under trial for, and they had no choice. Though the Council was not in total agreement about this, Obi-Wan and Plo Koon especially tried arguing for Anakin, saying that none of this makes any sense. But Windu and Mundi led the other side, saying that Anakin has been more vocal than others about the Jedi being in this war. He's always carried a darkness around him, and they just didn't trust him. It seems now that Anakin snapped, and this all came not long after Obi-Wan faked his own death. Perhaps this was Anakin's way of showing the Jedi that he would not stand for it any longer. Obi-Wan completely disagreed, but was overruled, and Anakin was no longer a Jedi. On Cato Nemoidia, as Ahsoka was about to enter into battle, Senator Padme Amidala contacted her, telling her what was going on. Ahsoka couldn't believe it. Anakin was obviously innocent, but it didn't matter. The Republic had their scapegoat, and they were riding with it. So Ahsoka would immediately return to Coruscant, leaving Rex in charge of the battle, and within hours, both Ahsoka and Obi-Wan would meet with Padme, learn that Anakin wouldn't even be getting a trial. He was deemed too dangerous, and was being set for immediate execution, but the three of them would come up with a plan. In all of this, Palpatine was putting together his own plans. He would be in attendance for the execution, and he would use his powers to free Anakin. From there, Anakin would have to make a choice: kill or be killed, join the dark side or die. This did accelerate plans quite a bit for Palpatine, but he felt he had no choice. Anakin got himself into a terrible situation. And so, within hours, Anakin was being escorted to the execution area by a group of 6 commando clones, when suddenly an astromech came rolling in, crashing into the wall. R2-D2 crashed into a pipe, and steam went everywhere, blinding Anakin and the clones momentarily. And suddenly, stun blasts rang out from the vents as Ahsoka and Padme took down the commandos, and Anakin felt his handcuffs dislodge as his saber was slipped into his hands. Obi-Wan cut a hole in the floor, revealing the sewer system, and he told Anakin to go. May the Force be with him. When the steam cleared, Anakin, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Padme were nowhere to be seen. Down in the sewers, Anakin was sprinting through them as he heard the distant prison alarms begin to sound off again. He felt in the Force that Padme, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan helped him, and he hoped they would be alright, but for now he had to fight for himself, free his own name, and then he could see his friends again. Anakin leapt down into the Coruscant underworld, diving hundreds of levels down, before finally landing on a worn-down area and hiding away. Anakin would spend the next few days alone here on Coruscant, waiting for the searches to end. he wouldn't be able to investigate anything, as he knew he'd be shot on sight. Shot to kill, not stun blasts this time. So for a few days, he wouldn't eat, sleep, or relax at all. He was on high alert, until he began making his way back up the levels, knocking out a clone, stealing his armor, before climbing all the way back up to the top level. And in the clone armor, Anakin would sneak away to a Republic fighter and begin flying through the air. Almost immediately, it was noticed that this ship was not authorized for takeoff, but once Anakin was in the air, nobody would be bringing him down. He flew around 2 squads of clone fighters before making his way into space, jumping to hyperspace for Malastare. Anakin was going to need a better ship, and in order to buy a ship, he would need credits, and he knew that Malastare had the perfect opportunity for him. Days would go by from here, and the Republic would turn its attention away from finding Anakin to focusing back on the war. Inside of the Jedi Council, Obi-Wan and Ahsoka were suspected of freeing Anakin, but the matter was settled for now. There was no clear evidence of them doing this, with the steam getting in the way of the cameras. They were needed back on the battlefront, but both Ahsoka and Obi-Wan swore to investigate this whenever they were back on Coruscant. Padme desperately missed Anakin, but she knew that he was out in the galaxy, doing what he has to do in order to clear his name. Palpatine was both frustrated and curious as to how this was all going to play out. In his mind, Anakin would either find a way to clear his name, or he would resent the Jedi, or he would die trying, proving to Palpatine that he was not worthy of the Sith title. And on Malastare now, Anakin was going to win a ship in order to return to Coruscant unnoticed, giving him all of the time he needs to figure out what happened. And so, within days, the contestants for the Malastare 100 pod race were being announced one by one. There were 10 contestants from around the galaxy lining up: Bry Andozier from Ryloth, Raz Need from Fondor, Og Lindare from Jakku, Samber Lin from Lannik, Karler Kupsan from Ringo, Lois Ruiz from Salonia, Bebron Jamis from Veros, and then the big 3 racers: Ben Quadraneros from Tund, Sebulba from Malastare itself, this was his home planet race, and the final new contestant, Anakin Skywalker from Tatooine. Both Sebulba and Quadraneros couldn't believe it. Anakin hadn't raced since Tatooine, but the two of them have practiced every day since losing to the boy, and they would not let it happen again. Anakin was borrowing a pod from a local rental place. He knew he could win it all here today. So as everyone started their engines, he confidently smiled to Sebulba, and the race would begin. Engines roared to life, propelling the racers forward into a sudden blast. As citizens from around the galaxy were gathered here, cheers erupted as it all began. Anakin Skywalker was a pod racing legend, and he was back to face his rivals. Sebulba would waste no time, employing ruthless tactics, muscling his way to the front, leaving chaos and collisions behind him as Need and Lin came crashing down. Anakin's reflexes were honed through countless hours of Jedi training, and he weaved through the chaos with a blend of skill and a bit of luck, determined to prove himself once again against the now seasoned veterans. Ben Quadraneros struggled to keep pace, his unconventional pod racer jerking, sputtering around as he was maintaining control. He was nervous going against Anakin and Sebulba again, but before long, he caught up. Unlike Tatooine, his pod racer was actually moving. The dangers of the race were constant. Debris was littering the tracks, rival racers were vying for position with reckless and dangerous movements, knowing that if they beat Skywalker, they will forever be a legend. Pod racers careened around perilous turns as they entered into a mountain. Sebulba slowed down, began relentlessly targeting everyone, but Anakin, undeterred by the danger, pushed his pod to its limits, spinning over Sebulba and taking the lead. As the race wore on, tensions reached a boiling point, as Sebulba, Anakin, and Ben found themselves locked in a fierce battle for the lead. Ben was redeeming himself, each maneuver a calculated risk, with pod racers narrowly avoiding collisions as they jostled for position. Only 5 pods were even left on the track at this point, and as they darted through the planet, 2 laps were now complete, and there was still basically a 3-way tie. In a corner where there were no cameras, Sebulba threw a manufactured grenade at Anakin, and Anakin used the Force to slam it into the ground. As it exploded, it hit only Quadraneros, and his pod slammed into the ground. Ben flew forward, landing on Anakin's pod now, and in a fit of rage, Ben tried to sabotage Anakin's pod, but Anakin spun around, leaving Ben tumbling away into the sands. And now as the race hurtled towards its conclusion, the tensions reached a new high, as Sebulba and Anakin raced neck and neck to the finish line. Each twist of the track was a test of their skill. Victory was in the balance. and in a heart-stopping moment, Sebulba made a daring move, attempting to sabotage Anakin's pod in a last-ditch effort to secure his lead. He moved in to slam into Anakin's pod, but as he did this, Anakin slammed on his own brakes. Sebulba hit the side of a cavern, and Anakin sped right past him. But as he did, Sebulba perfectly threw a wrench into Anakin's engines. Anakin's pod began sputtering to a stop, and through the smoke, Sebulba was laughing to himself. He did it. But through the smoke, Anakin backflipped out of it, landing right in Sebulba's pod and kicking him out of it to the ground. Anakin now sped through the finish line, and once again, Anakin Skywalker was a pod racing champion. He would go on to gather thousands of credits upon winning, and purchase a simple ship that would get him back into Coruscant unnoticed. By the time Anakin arrived back on Coruscant, it had been weeks since he left. He missed Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Rex, and especially Padme, but Anakin knew that he had to clear his name before contacting them, or everyone could be at risk. So Anakin would spend days in the Coruscant underworld retracing his steps, trying to find evidence of someone else building the temple bomb. But instead, Anakin would find someone else. A clone trooper, running for his life. And Anakin would secretly follow this clone through the underworld into a warehouse. And soon Anakin recognized him to be Fives of his 501st Legion. What was he doing here? And Anakin would see nearby that Rex, the Coruscant guard, and Ahsoka Tano were chasing after him. So Anakin acted, lifting Fives to the top of the warehouse with the Force and escaping through a window. Fives was extremely confused as to what was going on, but Anakin would soon hide him away, telling him to quiet down. Once the clones took their search elsewhere, Anakin asked Fives what was going on, and Fives revealed everything he knew. He recently discovered the true purpose of the inhibitor chips, and Palpatine himself revealed the truth to him. Anakin asked Fives if he trusts him, and Fives said yes. Anakin said this would be painful, but he could get the truth this way, and Fives said he would do whatever it takes. So Anakin reached his hand out to Fives' mind, sifting through his memories. It was a darker power, but Anakin was using it today. And quickly, he would see Palpatine in Fives' memories. The Chancellor smiled at Fives, knowing the clone was injected with a psychosis drug, and Palpatine revealed his true plans, causing Fives to basically go insane. Anakin broke off this connection and nearly fell to the ground. Palpatine is the Sith Lord, and he's going to turn the clones against the Jedi? Anakin considered his options now, and he decided he would be taking an eventual risk. He gave his ship to Fives, telling him to get off-world, at least until the war ends, and later that night, Anakin would sneak through Coruscant, stealing a speeder, jumping down into Padme's apartment. He had to sneak in through the window, as clone security was now always watching the balcony, thinking Anakin may return here. Anakin snuck in, and he woke up Padme. The two of them shared a long embrace, and Anakin then told her everything. He told Padme that she must go to the Jedi, tell them about the inhibitor chips, investigate the Kaminoans, and there they will find Palpatine's true plans. Padme agreed to do this, then asked Anakin what he was going to do, and with a smile, he said he was no longer held back by Jedi or Republic restraints, so he was going to go find and bring down Dooku. Padme said that Dooku and Grievous were reportedly on Utapau, and the Jedi Council dispatched Kenobi and Ahsoka with the 212th and 501st, so this would be perfect. The plans were set in motion. Padme would help bring down Palpatine, while Anakin helps bring down Dooku. On Utapau, the following day, Dooku and Grievous were inspecting a giant kyber crystal found on the planet when the Republic commenced their attack. Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and the two clone armies rained down an attack, but Dooku was prepared. He had his escape ship ready just over a cliffside. He had no need or want to fight, but as Dooku was about to get into his ship, a rusty old one with modified blasters came out of nowhere, blowing up Dooku's ship just before Dooku could escape. As Dooku watched this happen, he then saw Anakin Skywalker jump from the rusty ship, landing right in front of him. Ahsoka and Obi-Wan just began dueling with Grievous, but they saw Anakin arrive and couldn't believe it. They were ecstatic to have him here, of course. A lot of the clone troopers that saw Anakin arrive would turn with confusion. He was a criminal sentenced to death, but Rex and Cody yelled that they were not droids. They act on their own accord, and today, Anakin is with them. If they want to attack Anakin for what is accused of him, then so be it, but anyone who has fought with Anakin should know he is innocent. And all of the clones would turn back to their own fights with the battle droids. And now on the Utapau platform, Grievous was swinging at Ahsoka and Obi-Wan, while Dooku was smiling at Anakin. telling him this was going to be fun. Anakin wanted to end this once and for all. Up until this point, he managed his anger and rage so well, despite everything being against him. But he decided now to use it, act on it, embrace the feelings he was keeping hidden away. And so Anakin would run in at Dooku, clashing sabers in the Utapau plains. As the two of them swung at each other with immense speed, Anakin thought about the Jedi Council abandoning him, and quickly he was pushing Dooku backwards. He thought about Palpatine being a traitor, not only to him, but to the Republic, to the Jedi, to Padme. He ordered assassination attempts on her. This rage continued to help Anakin push Dooku backwards. He was using his dark emotions for good, and he remembered this entire war. All of it was pointless. All of it was created by Dooku and Palpatine to secure power for the Sith. Anakin decided that would not happen. He struck Dooku on both sides, then sliced into his shoulder. And Dooku now only had his left hand available. Anakin spun his saber behind his back, then cut into Dooku's knee, and he fell to the ground. Dooku looked up at him. He was amazed. He knew Anakin could unlock this power with the dark side, but he thought it would consume him, not help him. And now Anakin swung his saber for the kill, but stopped at the last second, and instead, he cut off Dooku's hands before knocking him out. He would stand trial. And Anakin looked to see Ahsoka and Obi-Wan finishing off Grievous once and for all, before coming to him, having the clones officially arrest Dooku, securing him in a Republic transport to go back to Coruscant. And almost at once, all three of Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Anakin looked to each other. Something just shifted huge dramatically in the Force, as if a great battle has begun. On Coruscant, after Padme told the Jedi that Anakin came to her with information about the inhibitor chips, the Jedi investigated this heavily, soon confirming the truth. The chips were designed to kill the Jedi, so Yoda, Windu, Fisto, Kolar, and Tin moved on the Chancellor, telling him he was under arrest. For Palpatine, this was excellent timing. He would kill these Jedi, and then he would convince the Senate that not only did the Jedi try to assassinate him, but they also framed Anakin for bombing the temple. Palpatine would say that Jedi framed Anakin on purpose, hoping to rid themselves of this wildcard Jedi, and Anakin could once again be his right-hand man in his new empire. And Order 66 would be more than acceptable to the galaxy. But as the duel began, Palpatine quickly realized he underestimated the Jedi. Although he was able to quickly discard of Kolar and Tin, the other three were quite powerful together. Yoda and Windu were an elite duo, while Kit Fisto remained alive, providing an annoyance to Palpatine, as the three of them fought through the office, cutting down furniture, slicing through his desk, until eventually Yoda was able to cut through Palpatine's saber. Windu jammed his own purple blade into Palpatine's chest, killing him here. While this battle was going on, the rest of the council was dispatched to investigate and find anything they could on the treasonous Palpatine. Among their discoveries, Plo Koon would soon find an underground tunnel from the Chancellor's home all the way to the industrial sector. Plo would find the Sith lair, and in the lair, he would find Barriss Offee, who went missing soon after Anakin escaped Coruscant. She was imprisoned here, and Plo would find records of Palpatine investigating her to find out that she was responsible for the bombing of the temple. Palpatine found this out and was keeping her here, planning to use the isolation and the hatred to turn her to the dark side. With Palpatine, Dooku, and Grievous dead, the Council would bring all of their evidence to the Senate, and they would convince them that Palpatine was working with Dooku with a plot to destroy the Jedi and take control of the Republic. And during this, Plo Koon and his wolf pack of clones would bring in Barriss Offee with the records of Palpatine's investigation to prove that she bombed the temple. Anakin was proven innocent. When it was all settled, Anakin would never return to the temple. He was not a Jedi any longer, and both Ahsoka and Obi-Wan would leave the Order as well. Fives would return to Coruscant, reuniting with his 501st brothers, thanking Anakin for the help, and in time, Anakin, Padme, and Ahsoka would get a large home on Coruscant together, living out their time helping people away from the Jedi Order. The entire ordeal with Anakin made all three of these former Jedi lose faith in the Council, but while they thrived away from the Order itself would also survive, continuing to serve the Republic, now led by Chancellor Bail Organa. Padme and Anakin would soon go on to have twins, and they would be part of the new Order of Jedi that Obi-Wan and Ahsoka were part of, a small but happier group that was serving the people of this Republic. And folks, that is our story for today. What if Anakin was accused of bombing the temple instead of Ahsoka? A lot of hoops you gotta jump through for this one to make it work, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. I think there are a couple paths you can take. One is the dark side path, where Palpatine basically initiates right away, frees Anakin, you know, turns him to the dark side basically right away, and just Darth Vader comes to life in that moment. Could have taken that path, but I don't know, didn't feel like it. Instead wanted to send Anakin on a few little missions of his own, have him kind of end up going to Mal. I thought the pod race was a fun idea. I was watching Phantom Menace in theaters and thought, how can I integrate a pod race into one of these stories? So I did it in this one. Hope that was fun. You know, Sebulba, Quadraneros come back. Somehow they have returned. Anyways, yeah, I enjoyed that. Hope you guys liked it as well. Let me know what you thought of the video overall. Once again, lightsaber giveaway in the comments, the pinned comment down below, so check that out. Otherwise, let me know what you want to see next. Next video will be on Monday, so yeah. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.